This is the Geneva Strategic Analysis. We return to Switzerland, where a third round of indirect talks between the US and Iran has concluded without a final agreement. While Omani mediators highlight significant progress, the negotiations have hit a critical wall. Today, we look beyond the headlines at the regional calculus and the long-term strategic risks reshaping the Middle East. The Geneva talks, a third round of indirect talks, moderated by Oman, concluded yesterday, February 26. While mediators report significant progress, the gap between Washington and Tehran remains vast. The U.S. administration is holding firm on the permanent dismantling of key nuclear sites, including Fordow and Natanz. In contrast, Tehran, facing internal economic pressures, has reportedly proposed reducing uranium enrichment to 1.5% in exchange for investment opportunities in its energy and mineral sectors. Regional tensions. This diplomatic push is occurring against a backdrop of significant military posturing. The USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group remains positioned in the Middle East, a move the Pentagon describes as a deterrent. However, this maximum pressure campaign faces a complicated diplomatic map. Traditional allies, including the UK and several Gulf nations, have expressed caution, signaling they may not support preemptive military action. Domestic pressures inside Iran. The stakes are equally high. The country continues to grapple with severe inflation and widespread domestic unrest. These internal challenges, coupled with questions regarding the future of the country's senior leadership, have placed the Iranian delegation under immense pressure to secure sanctions relief and stabilize the national currency. Diplomatic shift in sovereignty. A key hurdle in these talks is the signal of capability and sovereignty. Tehran views its nuclear infrastructure not just as a bargaining chip, but as a marker of national identity. Conversely, the U.S. sees the permanent dismantling of sites like Fordow as a non-negotiable requirement for regional stability. This clash of core interests has created a deadlock, even as Iran offers creative economic concessions in the energy sector to lure international investment. Strategic risk assessment. From a strategic risk perspective, the shadow war at sea and the U.S. Treasury's focus on the shadow fleet represents a high-stakes game of economic attrition. The risk of miscalculation remains elevated as both sides utilize military posturing as a deterrent. Meanwhile, Iran's internal volatility serves as a volatile backdrop that could either force a compromise or lead to a further hardening of positions. Geopolitical analysts remain deeply divided on whether these talks represent a genuine path to peace or a strategic stalling tactic. While the Oman Channel reports significant progress, veteran observers at the Institute for the Study of War and Chatham House point out a dangerous divergence in perception. Washington views the current negotiation as a final window to lock in concessions before a military deadline, while Tehran appears to be using the diplomatic table to forestall a U.S. strike amid its own leadership transition. Furthermore, market analysts note that while oil prices initially dipped on news of constructive ideas, they quickly rebounded as the reality of the deadlock over uranium transfer became clear. The prevailing expert consensus suggests that without a breakthrough on the verification mechanisms for enrichment, the risk of a kinetic resolution remains at its highest level since the 2025 strikes. Long-term regional outlook. Looking ahead, the failure to secure a grand bargain in Geneva suggests a future defined by managed tension rather than resolution. Compounding these risks is a growing diplomatic rift, as key regional partners, wary of the economic and security consequences of a preemptive strike, are increasingly prioritizing de-escalation. Ultimately, the deadlock between U.S. demands for dismantlement and Iran's defense of its infrastructure suggests that, without a significant shift in the Oman Channel, the region is entering a new era of permanent standoff. We will continue to monitor the situation.